Councillor Roland Warboys, Chair of Mid-Suffolk District Council, and I will be chairing the meeting today. May I first of all remind you of some domestic arrangements. Toilets are situated outside the meeting room. If a fire alarm should sound, please leave the meeting room by following the fire exit signs. Do not re-enter the building until you are told it is safe to do so. Please switch off all mobile phones or turn them to silent. Which reminds me, I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the Council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting, you are also consenting to being filmed by the Council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. Can I remind members to speak clearly into the microphones and to not put their papers over the microphones? Can I move to the agenda, please? Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies for absence from Councillors Bradbury, Overett, Ross Piper and Stringer.
Are there any declarations of interest? None, I think. Item MC 2317, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on 21st of September 2023 for accuracy only. Are there any issues with accuracy? Could I have a proposal, please? Councillor Matheson, or is there...
Yes.
Sorry.
Chair, yeah, I've proposed two minor textual changes which the officers have got to clarify the minutes.
Have we got those?
Chair, yeah, we have received those and the minutes have been amended, so the corrected version are in front of you now and have been tabled.
Are there any further issues with accuracy? Could I have a proposal, please? Councillor Eburn, I think you... Seconder, Councillor Matheson. I'll take the vote by show of hands, please. All those in favour? That is carried. Item MC 2318, chairs and items. I refer you to paper MC 2318 for noting. I would also like to take this opportunity of thanking all the services, council staff, volunteers, parish councils and district councils who responded to the calamitous flooding last Friday. Special thanks to the farmers and tractor drivers, particularly in Debenham, who helped rescue stranded motorists and ferry children through floodwater. Our public realm have been prompt to respond, collecting damaged carpets and other items, and many positive comments have been received from grateful residents. Many families are going to need long-term support as their homes will take several months to dry out. And this is a personal thank you to Peter, a farm worker in Thranderson, who came to my wife's rescue as she was marooned at the foot of Priory Road in Palgrave. Lessons need to be learned as these 1 in 100 years events appear to be happening more frequently, and we have a duty to build resilience into our communities. On Friday, I'm due to attend the launch of the poppy peel in Stowmarket. In 1921, Earl Haig noticed French widows selling silk poppies to raise money for disabled ex-servicemen. The poppy was subsequently adopted as a symbol of remembrance for the First World War, the war to end wars. I'm sure we're all too aware of the horrific events in the Middle East. We have Jewish and Muslim families in our communities who will be grieving for lost ones and praying for missing relatives, praying perhaps for an end to this cycle of violence that appears to have no end. We must be vigilant against both anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, as grief may turn into anger and hatred as people become vulnerable to ruthless and unscrupulous agents. Neither must we forget it is now day 610 of the brutal and unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we must look to the ongoing needs of Ukrainians in our communities who are also grieving and praying for their loved ones. Finally, before I move to the next item, I would like to thank Ifti Ali on behalf of the Council for all the help and support he has given over the past year. I would like to wish him well in his retirement. Thank you. I would like to invite Councillor Mullen to present his update, please.
Thank you, Chair. Last weekend's floods were the worst Mid-Suffolk has experienced for many years, and it's been a deeply distressing time for many of our residents and businesses who have seen property damaged and lives disrupted. A huge clean-up is now well underway, and I know we will all continue to do all we can to support residents, businesses and communities during this recovery period. Additional council staff have been deployed in the worst affected areas to assist with the clean-up and to help find temporary accommodation for affected residents in areas like Debenham, Stowe Market, Needham Market and others. As the Chairman has said, drying out properties and getting repairs done will take time, but we are committed to supporting residents and helping communities to recover. We welcome the Government's announcement of recovery funding, and we'll work with the County Council and other agencies to secure this and make sure it reaches those in need. I do want to say a huge thank you to everyone who was there for our communities at the weekend, to our emergency services, to our council staff who responded to the flooding, to councillors who were out in your communities over the weekend doing outstanding work, identifying issues and taking action, and to our town and parish councils and the local volunteers who helped their neighbours, family and friends. Particular thanks to the farmers who helped to ferry children through floodwater and to rescue motorists. And again to the Debenham Leisure Centre staff who provided an overnight rest centre for those forced from their homes. Also thanks to the teachers and school staff who ensured the safety of children. There will inevitably be many more that I've missed, but thank you to everyone. It was a difficult weekend. There is still a lot of work to do, but we should recognise the fantastic show of community spirit across Mid-Suffolk. I'd like to also remind everyone that there's still time to have your say on the Council's future direction and priorities. We have outlined the Council's or the administration's draft priorities, but we want feedback from the community. Are these priorities right? What else could we do and what have we missed? The survey is live until the 15th of November and details can be found on the website. And I hope members will encourage people to take part. Posters and postcards have also been created which you can share with your communities. And I know some councillors have asked for paper copies of the survey, and we do have those here tonight, so please do collect a few on your way out if you want to use those. We're pleased to have partnered with Groundwork East to deliver free, impartial expert advice to help businesses and organisations save energy, reduce their emissions and establish tailored decarbonisation plans. And this new net zero business advice service will provide free support to help businesses, the voluntary sector and other organisations to understand their greenhouse gas emissions, set a plan to reduce them and then access grant funding to implement carbon reduction actions. And more information about this is found on our website. Safer Suffolk Renters. This is a new initiative which aims to improve life for landlords and tenants in the private rented sector. We're joining forces with Suffolk's other district and borough councils to deliver this groundbreaking project. Safer Suffolk Renters is designed to create a better understanding of the pressures and problems in the sector and to improve standards, particularly in the worst private rented homes in the area. And to achieve this, the project team will consult widely with tenants, landlords and stakeholders in the county. There is a conference taking place at the University of Suffolk in Ipswich on the 3rd of November, and that's free for all landlords to attend. Again, details are available on our website. And there will be similar conferences for tenants and stakeholders, and those will follow. Lastly, members will recall the amendment to the last budget, which was agreed unanimously, to set aside £2 million for insulation and other home energy saving measures. Now, officers have been working hard to design this scheme, and I'm pleased to say that we'll be launching this initiative called Cosy Homes next month. And my colleague, Councillor Winch, has been working with the officers and will provide full details ahead of the launch. I said lastly, I meant just before lastly. Finally, just to say that Councillor Ollie Walters is now going to take on the role of lead member for waste and recycling in the administration. Thank you.
Are there any questions, please, for clarification? Councillor Winch.
I hear that one of Suffolk's MPs has been criticising mid-Suffolk planning in relation to the floods. Could you give some clarification of that, please?
Councillor Mill.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that was somewhat disappointing. I suppose I'd like to say first that our planning staff do a brilliant job in often quite challenging circumstances. And as a broad point, we had an independent assessment of that service less than 2 years ago through a peer challenge, and the review team considered it very well managed and with some very efficient processes. They also said we're performing well against all the national indicators. On the issue of flooding specifically, our planners have to operate within the framework that the government sets, and it wasn't until 2021 that the government took a more responsible approach to pluvial flooding, that is flooding from heavy rain, through the National Policy Planning Framework. And I think it's really wrong to kind of blame our planners for what happened over recent days. You know, we do want a kind of positive and collaborative approach with across the public sector, including our MPs, instead of people pointing fingers at us. Thank you.
Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first, I'd like to second Councillor Mellon's huge thank you to our officers and staff and others for their flood response. But I have a question for Councillor Mellon regarding matters covered in Section 3 of his report on net zero advice and the partnering with Groundwork East. A community facility in my ward, the Codnham Centre, has put a lot of time, effort and grant money into reducing their carbon footprint by almost 80%, investing in ground source heating, LED lighting and solar PV with batteries. It's an exemplar scheme, but they now find themselves having to renew their accreditation at a cost of over £800, including unrecoverable VAT. And that accreditation lasts for only 3 years before a need to renew yet again. And clearly, the lengthy lifetime of this project, these costs will accumulate significantly. So please could Councillor Mellon liaise with officers and Groundwork East to investigate whether there's any external funding available to cover these ongoing accreditation costs, and also to establish where there's any way that the accreditation could last for a longer period than just 3 years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very pleased to hear about this initiative in Codnham, and it sounds like they're doing exactly the right things. The Groundwork East initiative on business support is entirely separate to the carbon charter, which is the other measure that they are involved in, which I think is what you're referring to. I will ask staff to have a look into that to see whether the review periods for that could be lengthened, because it sounds like 3 years is not long enough for that sort of organisation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you very much. A roundabout question, if I may. Can I just agree with Councillor Mellon and thank the public for what they did at times of real, what was for many a real time of emergency. And I just wanted to really actually just pay credit to, it's dangerous mentioning names, but I just want to pay credit to the team at Mid-Suffolk, to Mark Ems, who I have found has been incredibly responsive on every email within seconds, despite the fact he's being probably bombarded by every councillor. And also to Brad Jones, because I thought the communications to councillors through the whole process was really great, came forward very quickly. Would, as a question, Councillor Mellon agree that it's really important that anyone that has been flooded goes straight on to either Mid-Suffolk or Suffolk County Council, reports in-house flooding so we can build a whole picture very quickly so that we can take advantage of the government grants that are coming through?
Absolutely agree with that. Clearly, the amount of grant funding that might come Suffolk's way is contingent on the number of properties that have been affected. So I would encourage all members to make sure that people in your wards are reporting flooded properties, whether it's businesses or homes, through the relevant channels, through the district or the county council's website.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for clarification? None? Then I shall move on. Questions by the public in accordance with council procedure. Have I turned over? Oh, beg your pardon. To receive notification of petitions in accordance with council procedure rules.
Thank you, Chair. None received.
You always read round to the bottom of the question paper, shouldn't you? Questions by the public in accordance with council procedure rules.
None received, Chair.
Questions by councillors in accordance with council procedure rules. I refer you to the question in the table papers. I would now like to invite Councillor Elkin to ask a question.
Thank you, Chair. In July, this council unanimously approved the motion to write to the government in order to register our opposition to the proposed Norwich-Tilbury pylon line and to call instead for an integrated offshore approach. A letter was subsequently sent to the then Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, the Right Honourable Grant Shapps, and then to his successor in the role, the Right Honourable Claire Coutinho. With reference to this, can I ask the Chair if he has received a response? Thank you.
No, Councillor Elkin? No, I have not received a response to date. Do you have a second question?
Yes, please. Thank you. As you have not received a response from the relevant government minister, can I ask what other steps we might be able to take as a council to ask the government and the National Grid to provide information on a strategic offshore solution which incorporates all the planned energy projects, which would cost less and minimise the impact on local communities and the environment? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I am prepared. I am quite happy to write to our local MPs to actually sort of see if this letter can actually be not just answered but actually acknowledged. We have not received any acknowledgement that they've actually had the letter. My understanding is where we are with regard to the pylons is that we're waiting for a study by the National Grid ESO. The progress on this was last reported in August 2023 to say that they are waiting on a government decision on funding the continued development of offshore coordination between certain offshore wind farms and interconnectors is made. And then the National Grid ESO will independently assess the different ways the electricity can be transported. Currently, it is up to GB's transmission owners to work through the exact specifications of required network infrastructure and consult with communities and make decisions on what to build. That is the situation as I understand it, and I'll go back to the first bit. We are waiting on a government decision to funding the continued development. I'm happy to sort of ask for letters to be sent to our local MPs to see if they can sort of engender a response from the current Secretary of State for Energy, Claire Coutinho. Is that a satisfactory answer? Thank you. MC 2319, Overview and Scrutiny Committee Report. I'd like to invite Councillor Caston to introduce his report.
Thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure to give you the Overview and Scrutiny Committee report for July, August and September. I'd like to thank all the members, all the substitutes, my Vice Chair and the officers for all the work they've done on that. There was an issue with it where I tested positive for COVID for the September meeting at the last minute, and Councillor Mary McLaren chaired the meeting for me. So where it says authors at the bottom of the report, Councillor Mary McLaren from Baver should be on that list because she did the report on the September meeting. But the report's for noting, and I'm quite happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I hope you're fully recovered. Are there any questions for Councillor Caston? No further questions.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hardingham.
I'd like to ask the councillor, was there any consideration of the need for Anglian Water to reassess the adequacy of the sewage system to accommodate new developments and make proper provision for increased load before occupation?
Well, this is the meeting that I wasn't present at, but I believe there was a lot of discussion along those lines. There is an issue as a planning authority that it's our job to make sure that there's the infrastructure to take the waste that our new developments produce. There is the Suffolk County Council Flood Risk Scrutiny Committee, subcommittee, did lobby the government over a section in the Water Management Act previously, which was to do with the amount of water that's flood water that goes into the sewage system, which obviously overloads the normal capacity of the sewers. And this was discussed in this meeting, if that helps you. But I can get you a better reply to that, but unfortunately that was the one meeting that I wasn't present at. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Right, I would just like to point out that report is for noting only. Item 10, MC 2320, Solar and Low Carbon Energy Position Statement. I'd like to invite Councillor Mellon to introduce paper MC 2320 and to move the recommendation in the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting this item on behalf of my colleague, Councillor Stringer, who is having a well-deserved break. But this position statement on solar and low-carbon energy is very timely. Members, I'm sure, are very aware of the several planning applications for solar farms that our planning committee have had to deliberate on over the last few months. Can I pay tribute to members of the committee for their hard work they have put in and their diligence in making these difficult decisions. There has been a lot of local attention and feelings have occasionally run high. The position statement that I'm presenting today seeks to clarify the Council's position as far as we are able to, and I hope that it does make it clear for communities that are affected by these developments. Paragraph 4.6 in the report sums up the situation very well. It says this: addressing climate change is vital, protecting agricultural land is important, safeguarding landscape value is essential, working with our communities is a key strategic priority, and balancing all these things is difficult. And I think that paragraph sums up the dilemma we often find ourselves in. Ideally, we would have a supplementary planning document covering this issue, and we will have one eventually under the joint local plan. This is one of the 9 SPDs that officers are working on. But this position statement is what we can do now, and it focuses on 3 key issues: the loss of the best and most versatile farmland, the potential harm to the landscape, and the concerns and fears being expressed by our communities. But I do want to make it clear, as an administration, we are in favour of renewable energy production. We cannot hope to meet the country's and the county's net zero aspirations without a substantial increase in solar, wind and other renewables. But we strongly encourage the installation of solar panels on existing and new buildings. But we recognise that this is largely directed by national building regulations. It is frustrating that the current planning framework does not allow us to mandate solar panels on new roofs, yet we are unable to prevent them being put on even our best farmland. So I think this position statement is a useful interim holding position until we get a full SPD in due course. And I'm happy on that basis to propose the recommendations. 3.1, the solar and low carbon energy position statement set out at Appendix A be adopted and published on the Council's website. I would like to make a minor amendment to a recommendation 3.2, and that's this: that the Director of Planning and Building Control, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Planning and the Chair of the Planning Committee, that's the additional sentence, be authorised to make any minor amendments as necessary. But that's my proposal, and I'm happy to ask for a seconder.
Councillor Weller, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second that proposal.
Thank you. We'll now move to questions. Have we got any questions, please? Councillor Headingham.
Thank you. I'm happy to vote for this, but would this have made any difference to the last 2 controversial solar farms the Planning Committee has seen in Palgrave and in Great Lakenham?
So I think around that answer is the question of whether this is a material consideration, which would play a part in planning. This is a material consideration, but it can't set policy, and obviously decision making starts from the development plan, which is why it's clear in there about policy LP25 from the local plan. So I think essentially what this document is doing is describing what the council would like to see and what we'd expect good developers to demonstrate, and we'd love to see them addressing those points. We did see some movement on those last 2 applications, perhaps not as much as we'd have liked to, but I feel that this statement would contribute to better decision making in the future. So yes, I think it probably could have made a difference.
Yes, Councillor, could you?
I would like to know if this statement was being prepared prior to the last planning meeting, particularly concerning the Palgrave decision, why we weren't told that this was in the offing as part of that process. Because I think it would have been a great help to have had this then, or at least deferred the decision of the Palgrave application until after this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Miller.
I'll attempt to answer that. This position statement has been in progress for some time in preparation. This was the first opportunity to bring it to full council. I understand that the Palgrave decision was already deferred once. The problem with deferring things multiple times is that you end up in a position where we could ask for a non-determination and take it to appeal. So I think the information here is only a collation of what's already out there. I'm not sure that necessarily it would have been helpful to have it in draft form in the public domain.
Councillor Mansell.
I'd like to ask a question that maybe is a question for the officers, if that's okay. Now, I understand that this is an interim statement, before we get our supplementary planning guidance. So I would just like to ask if we have any, can we have any sort of indication of the timeline for the production of the supplementary planning document? Thank you.
Could I ask the Director, please, to respond?
It's through you, Chair.
Thank you.
If it would be okay, I'll pick that up with you outside of the meeting. It is on the published local development scheme. Just take me a few minutes, too many, to pull that out and identify what it is. Of course, at the next council meeting, councillors will get a new local development scheme, and that will set out the timetable for both the future Part 2 local plan, but also the creation of supplementary planning documents. In there.
Thank you. In giving clarification to applicants, residents, obviously language is crucial, and Councillor Mellon referred to paragraph 4.6 where he said, addressing climate change is vital, protecting agricultural land is important, and safeguarding landscape value is essential. So just in terms of those three words, vital, important and essential, how would he actually rank those in priority in terms of the clarification he's trying to put forward? Thank you.
So this is the problem of referring to a paragraph that someone else has written. I think it's very difficult to rank those. In fact, I looked at those and thought I might have used slightly different words, but I think it does sum up the essential problem that we're trying to struggle with. I would say, if anything, addressing climate change is essential. Working with our communities is the way we want to do things. And too often in this area, it feels like we are doing things to a community rather than with them. So I would certainly like to move towards a position where we are working much closer with communities. It would be brilliant if we had some community solar initiatives coming forward. And I think if people could see local benefit, for example, reduced price electricity, Section 111 benefits coming out to the community, I think people would be much more in favour of these things. I hope that's some kind of answer.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I welcome this. After this is adopted, which I'm presuming is going to be adopted by Council tonight, would you be able to, as a council, lobby central government along with other local authorities for changes that would allow us to have the right kind of development where solar panels are and not necessarily on agricultural land?
Yes, I think we will. We have done and we will continue to lobby. I did make a speech at the LGA conference on this particular issue back in July, which was referenced in the local press and in the first magazine. So yes, I think it is an emerging area of kind of conflict. I'm sure government is going to give some attention to this because communities are in some cases up in arms about it, let's be honest. And I think people's understanding of the balance between energy production and food production is something which is still developing.
Councillor Hardingham.
Because available connection opportunities for solar farms and indeed other large-scale energy projects are really relatively few and far between still at the moment, it is evident that there will be multiple applications in these particular locations, not related to the soil quality, for instance, or the cropping ability of the farmland round about. It's important, therefore, that the cumulative impact on communities where multiple applications are likely to be coming forward centred on these connection points can be considered in planning decisions and in making decisions about where solar farms can go and how many there should be in any one location. Is this going to be a part of an SPD if and when it comes forward? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get Tom to come in with further clarification, but as far as I understand it, the cumulative effect only kind of comes in as a material consideration once one application has been approved and then another application comes in the same landscape area. But Tom, I don't know if you can provide some further clarification on that.
Slightly, sorry, through you, Chair. A good question, slightly complex situation. Essentially, a key plank of planning, the approach to planning, is that each application is determined on its merits. But clearly there are cumulative impacts, and that is something that we will have to pick up and address within the supplementary planning document. The extent to which we can do so, I need to look into and speak to councillors further on that.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Penny.
Yes, as we are to have solar farms, would Councillor Mellon agree that we have an opportunity to provide models of best practice, perhaps under planning conditions? Does this motion allow for that or assist with that?
Yes, I think there is scope for a forward-thinking developer to pilot best practice in this area, and that, to my mind, would mean very early consultation with the community. It would mean identifying community benefits, as I've talked about previously, and responding to communities' concerns about the impact on the landscape. So I very much hope that we will see something like that coming forward. I very much fear that some of the applications coming towards us are on the larger scale, and they may be beyond our scope of determination, i.e. they will be NSIPs. But we'll see what happens. It would be great to see some kind of very progressive developments coming forward in this space.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Good evening. I would like to seek reassurance for our communities within Suffolk that there is going to be some kind of control upon these energy companies, and that it's not simply just going to be a green light for these policies.
I think what we set out in the position statement is the limits of our controls under the current planning guidance and rules. What we've set out in there is what we'd like to see developers do. I think we are in a difficult position where, as I said previously, we cannot mandate solar panels on roofs, which is where we'd like to see them, and we cannot protect the best and most versatile agricultural land. It's not a comfortable place to be, but this position statement seeks to clarify things and to set out a direction of travel.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor.
Regarding NSIPs, as you say, I think there may be some more coming up. You know, are we going to have a position as a council on these NSIPs? We might not have overall control of them, but are we willing to oppose them and stand against them where we feel that they're inappropriate?
I'll ask the Director for clarification on this, but as far as I understand it, when an NSIP comes through, we have the opportunity to comment on them.
Yeah. Through you, Chair. Yes, we would be a consultee on any nationally significant infrastructure projects, and as such, the Council would be in a position to would be able to state its position and respond to those consultations formally.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I wondered whether central government actually have an allocation of solar farms per district, which covers the country. Does this exist or not?
I think the problem with that is that sunshine is unequally distributed. As a Welshman, you will know that you don't get quite so much over there as we do here. That's from my memory of working in Wales for a year. So unfortunately, as the sunniest part of the country, we do tend to be in the firing line in terms of these applications. As far as I understand it, we're potentially producing far more energy than Suffolk needs already. But we are, I think, described now as NSIP Central or the Energy Coast or whatever. So there's lots going on in Suffolk, but it's it feels sometimes like we're taking one for the country.
Are there any further questions? As the questions are finished, we'll now move to the debate. Councillors will only be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Who would like to? Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd firstly like to acknowledge the thanks that Councillor Mellon offered to the committee. That is appreciated. I'm a member of it, of course. But what I think the value of this statement has been said, it's not going to have huge cutting edge as a material consideration, but it will help the public, more of the public, to understand what we do. And what was quite heartening at the end of a very long debate on the solar farm was that one of the objectors from the parish council said to me afterwards how impressed she had been with how hard the whole committee had worked on that application and to get the best of it, that we could out of it. And so I think that if more people watch it on YouTube or sit here and listen to it, and this is the next best thing to that, so I welcome the statement.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I do welcome the sentiments of the position statement, but understand its limitations as it's not a policy document. And for our communities that have had to deal with the solar farm applications that we've determined at Planning Committee, it is a very emotive subject for them. And we have, as a committee, we have difficult decisions to make. Now, much of what is put into that position statement are the sorts of things that we've tried to be conditioning if we've granted permission. And I think what the statement is trying to do is trying to encourage developers that this is the sort of thing that we've been doing when we've conditioned permission. So why not do it in the first place and make our lives a little bit easier? So I think the sentiment of it is right. I think it perhaps needs a little bit more clarity, as has been pointed out by Councillor Whitehead, that what does essential and vital mean? What is it we're actually asking developers to do? We often say we want them to, after the event, after they've got permission, that they've got to have a community liaison group. Wouldn't it be wonderful if they did that beforehand? And that's really what we're asking them. So I would like to see a nice clear statement at the bottom of the paragraph about community is we're expecting you to liaise with the community before the application gets determined. Then the other criteria were to do with the landscaping. Again, at the recent, both those recent solar farm applications, We have asked the developer to go back and change the landscaping, particularly along public rights of way and places where the public are actually, I think it's more a case of they don't like the unknown. They don't know what it's going to be like because what was there was a carrot field or whatever, and now it's going to have a 6-foot plus high deer fence and a load of steel infrastructure, solar panels behind it. No one really knows what that's going to be like until we actually get one. I think we need a site visit to go and see one once it's finished, so we actually truly understand what it is really like to live adjacent to a solar farm. And then there is this age-old question of the quality of the farming land. So I think all of these things are good things to put in the statement, but we just need to make it quite clear what we are expecting developers to do when they submit an application. But I welcome the sentiment and I'll be voting for it, but I would like to tweak it. Thank you.
Councillor Caxton.
Thank you very much, Chair. And you won't be surprised to hear that I don't think this goes far enough. Coming from Brantford, we've had so many applications. It's been a really difficult time for the people of Brantford and the people trying to fight this. It seems like this doesn't actually change or help the position of those residents, but it does clarify things, and I think the more information is better in this case. But I would like to see this SPD come through so we can actually push developers to do better where they apply, and also refuse some. It does strike me as the land quality thing on these. It could create thousands more tonnes of carbon on a 49.9 megawatt installation, using decent quality land, taking that land out of production and then importing from China or Russia or other countries this food that we need. It makes a massive difference. Even when we get down to 3A land, that makes a massive difference. It's a huge amount of carbon, extra carbon. The community solar projects, I think this council should go for those in a bigger way. I think that's a way to do something that suits this community, because the biggest thing about this is most of the power generated from these solar farms that we're putting in mid-Suffolk is going north and south. Not just north and south in Suffolk, Norfolk, Tilbury, and we've got a load more pylons proposed that will mean we're even more in danger of getting more solar. Why are we producing the power on our fields to supply other parts of the country? It just, with this, I am really disappointed that the council didn't fight the appeal against the Enzo application. It left residents and parish council completely on their own to try and fight that Enzo application. And it was a really stressful and difficult time for people that aren't part of a council. It puts us in a really bad position. Could I just finish? There's a huge amount of money to be made by these solar developments for investment funds that we can ask for so much more. They can give us so much more in the applications. We really need to be pushing them for that if we can't stop them. And I'm saying in inappropriate solar farms. I'm not against solar farms in general, but we need to be pushing them more. There's millions and millions of pounds and business rates for the council involved there. They can afford to do it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Sorry.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll support this proposal, but I think we need to be realistic. And it's been said by Councillor Mellon, this actually carries very little weight. It carries very little weight as a material consideration for the Planning Committee, because it hasn't been out for public consultation. So I would say actually it's more of a desire or a wish list rather than anything that actually carries any substance. And I think it's really important that the council takes a far more robust approach going forward, positions itself far more strongly. Because I think there is a real risk here that the public need to think about. That by electing a Green Council, there is a significant risk that we are seen as a soft target for multiple solar farms across the district. Because I think there is a risk that developers will think a Green Council, opportunity for solar farms. So I hope I'm wrong and we don't see a significant increase in the number of solar applications across our district. And time will tell over the next 3 months, 6 months, year, but I am worried we'll see a big increase because of the fact we now have a Green Council and we're seen as an easy target.
Councillor Winch.
Yeah, I'd like to just cover off the Green Council easy target bit. I'm very much in favour of this motion, but I think we need to see it in the wider context. And the wider context is that at the moment we've got about 15 gigawatts of solar power in the UK. The government's energy policy is to go to 70 gigawatts by 2035, so that's government policy. So you've got 3 possible approaches to this problem. One is you ignore the target, which we don't agree with. The second one is that you build solar farms all over the place, and that seems to be the strategy that we're on at the moment. Our policy is we have we have brownfield, and we supplement with solar farms, but we give ourselves a lot more flexibility with the solar farms. I just want to give you some numbers to put this into context. So the CPRE, the Countryside Charity, commissioned a report, a really interesting report about rooftop solar, and they looked at all the commercial buildings in the UK, just took the south-facing buildings, ignored 75% in case they're not suitable. You've still got 25 gigawatts of capacity on roofs in the UK. At the moment in Europe, a lot of European countries are passing legislation to mandate putting rooftop solar in place. Some of the states in southern Germany already produce half the amount of solar energy that we do in the UK, just one state in southern Germany. If you look at brownfield sites, there's incentives in a lot of European countries along motorways, railways. France has just passed some legislation for car parks. Any car park with over 80 spaces within 5 years has got to have half of it with a solar canopy. Over 400 spaces has got to have the solar canopy within 3 years. So unless you do a lot more around the roofs and the brownfield sites, we're going to really struggle to stop this wave coming at us. So I'm strongly in favour of this policy, but it needs to be, and we want to see more renewable energy, but we've got to be much more flexible in how we approach this, or we're going to end up in a right bind.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penny.
Yeah, Councillor Winch has just expressed some of what I was going to say, only far more eloquently. One concern that I do have with the size of the solar farms is that they are capped deliberately at 49.9 megawatts when they are clearly capable of producing more. Energy is being created that is just being wasted. Many of the ones that declare themselves at capacity at 49.9 megawatts are clearly therefore too large and do not need to be that size. Otherwise, declare themselves as their true capacity. This is something I do have concern about. But I will be supporting this motion.
I think I might be the one dissenting voice in the chamber, because unfortunately the policy statement is an example of the types of tricky balancing that comes with leaving it too late to take actions that are needed in the climate emergency. It would be much better to already have had a planning framework and infrastructure in place, already resulting in much greater solar panel coverage on roofs, brownfield sites and low quality farmland, because where there's infrastructure is also partly what comes into where applications are being put in for. While I understand the need for this policy statement for us as a rural district where the planning committee is having to consider solar panel developments and the sentiments of local communities, the policy statement for me does not make clear enough the extent of the crisis and the balance that may be needed as the crisis continues to be more apparent if we continue nationally and internationally to fail to make enough progress in minimising the effects of the climate crisis, including on our local communities and things like food supply chains.
Every time, Chair. So in my ward, we have Gateway 14, which, as you know, has a massive building called The Range, which has a roof, or the range itself is 1.2 million square feet, which then when you translate that up to the roof, which is actually shaped, it's probably even bigger. So you've got approximately 27 acres of space on top of just the range itself, which then at 625 kilowatts per acre, you can generate somewhere around 17 megawatts of energy, which we are currently not utilising. And I know there are problems with connections to the grid of getting that energy out, but energy comes in many forms, not just electricity. You can do a lot more with the solar electricity than just keep it as electricity. You could have a solar to hydrogen plant. You could have a solar to battery system. You could perhaps transport that energy to the residents in my ward locally, and you could actually give them reduced bills. So perhaps we shouldn't just think narrow of why are we transporting all this energy out? We could actually change it to something else and still generate it. But I definitely 100% think that every building on Gateway 14, which we own, should be completely 100% solared, and think outside the box and do something clever with that energy and not just send it out to the grid.
Thank you, Councillor. Have we got to make contributions to the debate? Thank you. Councillor Mellon, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I'm grateful for all the different perspectives that have come into the debate. Can I commend this position statement for what it is, and I realise its limitations, but it is a stepping stone to having a full SPD. I hope it will provide some assistance to our hard-working planning committee as they work through these difficult applications and decisions. I absolutely understand the concern that members are getting from their communities, and whilst it might be affecting Bramford and Palgrave now, I'm sure it will be my ward and yours next. So I do share those concerns, and I'm sure they are coming to all of us. As someone who's been involved in the food production industry and still is to some small extent, I get the concern we have about trading energy production for food production. But I think, as Councillor Winch said, we have this priority of trying to get more solar panels on roofs before we take up rural land, and I would love the government to mandate that. I agree with Councillor Rowe that really we're not acknowledging the scale of the emergency. In one sense, I wouldn't have started from here if we'd been in administration previously and had a Green government. We would have been doing a lot more with solar panels and other low-cost energy earlier. Just to cover off the issue of the range, I understand that 20% of the roof will be solar, but we couldn't do more than that at this time because of the lack of a connection into the grid due to someone else having a prior appointment, as it were, with National Grid in terms of a solar farm in that area. But the roof has been built strong enough to take more solar panels, so I hope that the business who is going to buy the building off us will move to 100% solar, as my colleague recommends. And we should be exploring those other ideas about turning solar energy into hydrogen or other forms so that we can use it or store it or use it elsewhere. But can I say that I would like councillors to vote for this. It's not perfect, but it is kind of where we are, and I commend it to the council.
Councillor. We have a second, or shall we go to?
We had a second, I think, Chair. We had a second.
Hmm?
We had a second, I think, unless the seconder wants to speak now.
Would the second like to speak now? Councillor Mallon? Councillor Weller?
No, that's it, no.
Councillor Davies?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to second this.
Councillor, I was asking if the seconder would like to say anything. Fine, thank you. Then I'll now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. That is showing in blue for members to cast their vote. Councillor Indus, do you want to place your vote manually? Chair, that is 29 votes for and 1 against.
So to speak. I'll continue then. Item 11, MC 2321, Community Governance Reviews. 22 to 23. I would like to invite the Interim Director, Law and Governance and Monitor Officer to introduce paper MC 2321.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, Chair. So the paper today is for the Council to be asked to approve draft recommendations of the Community Governance Working Group to go out to wider consultation. The wider consultation will include the electors who live in the area that are affected, MPs, county councillors, the ward councillors, and those town and parish councils again that are affected. Those bodies, apart from the electors, have already been as part of the initial consultation, but this time draft recommendations are now being put before them. In coming to the decision, the Community Governance Working Group had a site inspection on the 5th of October, and you can see the paperwork in the plans, and the site inspection report is there to be seen. So what the Community Governance Working Group is asking for is that the recommendations at Appendix A, Issue 1, which is to do with the boundary of Stowmarket and One House, and Issue 2, which is to do with the boundary of Battersford and Combs. So I would like to make one correction to the report. At Appendix C, it refers to Councillor Miles Rowe as being Ward Councillor Stowmarket. That's incorrect, and that the word ward should just be deleted from that particular part of the report. I would just say at this point that these are draft recommendations, and all you're doing today is putting them out to consultation. That doesn't fetter any future council meeting, so this will come back to a future council meeting in January after the wider consultation has taken place, and those consultees and their responses taken into account. The reason why it's going out to the wider consultation is because the electoral arrangements and boundaries for all 4 of those areas are protected until 2027. So any consultation needs to be wide enough for the Boundary Commission to be able to say, well, you've given a fair consultation, and for them to then accept any decision that's made at the end of the day. And Chair, unless there are any questions, I'll be looking for a proposer and a seconder, and I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you, Ishti. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Mansell.
I'm happy to propose this motion, but the interim manager for, sorry if that's the right title, whatever the title is, interim director for law and governance, has just quite categorically said that this will be coming back to full council in January. But item number 5 on the recommendations, I don't think makes it that clear that that is the case. I'm happy to propose it, but does item 5 actually need to say that it will come back to council for who make the final decision?
Mansell.
Is that allowed?
It's a bit out of order. Shall we answer that question first?
Chair, yes, that's absolutely the intention. So the recommendation should make that absolutely clear. So happy for that additional wording to be put into well, we could make an additional recommendation at the end of 4, to say, and for the matter to come back to full council for a final decision.
Could we have a seconder, please? Councillor Linden.
Yeah, I'm very happy to second this. The group which I was part did 3 meetings. First on Teams, very well run by Ifti here, and then we assembled on site and we made most of a day thorough walk around all these areas A, B and C, so we could thoroughly assess the sense and place and the impact it could make one way or the other. And after that we had a second Teams meeting where we thoroughly discussed all these matters once again, and we then unanimously decided to go for what it has so well put down on this paper, so I would be very pleased to second this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Scarf.
Thank you, Chair. If I understand rightly, Councillor Mansell suggested that this isn't clear that this comes back to Council. I don't think by amending recommendation 4 that does the job, because it still leaves 5 intact. I would propose that recommendation 5 be replaced with that this item comes back to full council, so a full decision by full council is relevant. And I think there are very good reasons for that, because I think our residents would expect that such an important decision would be decided by all councillors. And the issues of public trust and transparency are the reasons I support this amendment. So if I'm right, I think Councillor Mansell has proposed that it comes back to council, I think by replacing item 5, and I'm happy to second that, Chair. Thank you.
So you need to get a seconder for that amendment, because that's a new proposal, and then you need to ask Councillor Mansell if she accepts it.
Right. I need to get a seconder now for Councillor Scarf's proposal. If there's a seconder, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to second that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Mansell, do you accept that?
I do, but I think what we really need is we need our officers to read out what items, recommendations 4 and 5 are going to be, because I agree, looking at number 4, says Community Governance Working Group be authorised to amend the draft recommendations and go out to reconsult. Item number 5 then says the monitoring officer is authorised to complete the CGR, and I think I agree. I think it should be that after the decision has been made by full council, the monitoring officer will be authorised to go and make the CGR. I think that's really what we want. So So maybe if the officers can actually tell me what the recommendations now say, I think we can then go forwards. But I'm happy to accept that because I think it is important, certainly for that Stowmarket Wannus boundary, that it is seen to be a full council decision. I think it's very important for the residents of that area.
I agree, Councillor Manson. I think I've grasped the...
Yeah. Would you like me to assist in
Would you please?
So, Chair, just to assist Council, so the actual amendment to recommendation 5 will be that the item is brought back to, or the matter is brought back to Council for a final decision by full Council, and that the monitoring officer be authorised to complete the CGR and any required orders once all consultation submissions have been considered by the Community Governance Working Group. And full council. And full council at the end of that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm certainly happy with that.
You're certainly happy with that? Councillor Scarf, does that fit in with your...
Indeed, I'm happy with that. I think it provides us with the clarity that we need, Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you ever so much. We'll now move to questions. Councils may ask as many questions as they wish. However, they must be relevant to the subject under discussion and must be a question. If there are no questions, could I ask a question, Councillor? Could you just outline who the consultees are going to be in this?
Yes, Chair. The further consultees will be the town and parish councils that have already been consulted in the initial consultation, the electors in the area affected, so that will be Stowmarket, One House, Battersford and Combs. It will be the county councillors and the ward councillors for that particular area and the MPs for those particular areas.
Thank you.
There is also a list of businesses in the areas, but I'm a little bit unclear as to whether or not we could use that information under data protection. So there is a list of businesses in the area. Those that can be consulted and those whose details we have will also be consulted as part of the wider consultation.
Thank you. Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, can I ask, you just said the areas affected, but you also said the parishes. So is it all the residents of the parishes and towns affected, or is it just the people that are affected by the boundary being moved or not moved?
Apologies, no, for clarity. All 15,000 electors in Stowmarket, the 871 electors in One House, Battersford, the figures are there, I can't recall them off the top of my head, but so everybody that's... yeah, so I take back the word affected. It's those who live in those areas. Thank you.
Councillor Carter.
I just wanted to ask about the method of how we are going to do the consultation about... is this going to be electronic? Is it going to be telephone? Is it going to be paper? And are we going to do a better job of actually advertising it and promoting it than we have done on previous things that we're currently doing at the moment?
Councillor, it will be, through you, Chair, it will be a mixture. We have some emails on our electoral register, but those can only be used for electoral purposes. So we're very limited in how we can use those. So the vast majority will be postage, be letters out. We will also have an email inbox, so a dedicated email inbox, where once we advertise it through our website and through the town and parish councils, there will be a dedicated email inbox where individuals can respond directly. So not just only by post, but through that means as well.
Councillor Walton.
Thanks, Chair. So can I ask what the minimum acceptable response rate will be in terms of percentage of the numbers that you outlay there? And to back up Councillor Carter, can I also ask that, as well as all those methods that you talked about to promote the consultation, that we also have an element of outdoor media involved to promote it to all the people that otherwise won't see emails, that won't see or possibly receive letters, flyers, that sort of thing. It's imperative in my mind to have a successful consultation. You will need to have an element of effective postering in parishes, town centres and wards.
It will be advertised on social media. I don't quite know how far that gets, but it will be posted on social media, so I think it's the Facebook page, etc. In regards to the minimal response required, there isn't one. And a consultation, you consult. The effective consultation is you spread it as wide as you can through whatever medias you can. If the response is one, that's the response. That doesn't mean, and then you take that one response into account.
Would you like to continue? I'll come back to you, Councillor Carter, then. Yes, please, Councillor.
Yeah, sorry. So social media post isn't what I was referring to. What I'm asking is, can the council consider outdoor media of some description for those people that don't engage with online social media, because there's far more than we realise that do not see online emails, social media, etc. So I'm asking if you will consider posters, physical posters being placed across towns and districts.
The answer to that is yes.
Yes, of course.
Could I request that this be in a number of formats left available? So I'm not talking about just writing, but there may be visual sighted, there may be, to make it as accessible as possible, and have these left in certain facilities, either leisure facilities, maybe doctors or something that are accessible where people are going to go and may not have it as a standard available format. Because we have a number of residents here with a number of difficulties and wanted to make it as open as possible.
Please. Thank you.
Yes, it's very sensible.
Are there any further questions? Councillor White.
I might be the only person here who doesn't know the answer to this, and apologies if that's the case, but I'm just a bit confused where the council makes the community governance order, but then it talks about the fact that everything's sort of in concrete, if you like, until July 2027 with the Boundaries Commission. So how does that actually work in terms of, say, the elections for county in 25 and district elections in 27?
Thank you, Chair. That's why the requirement for the LGBTE consent, because those boundaries need to be changed before 2027, because they are protected at the moment.
So if it's approved by council, we then ask for their consent, which they shouldn't really withhold, I guess.
Yes, if they do withhold it, then it doesn't happen. The order doesn't happen.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, excuse my ignorance. How do you balance the return on consultation on the figures you've just said, where there's a potential response from 15,000 versus a potential response from 800? How do you balance the number of replies?
Chair, through you, it's a very, very good question, but those are the figures, unfortunately. Those are the people that live in those areas, those are the electors who are affected, and they are the ones who are entitled to make a response. The figures, they're not weighted, so you wouldn't weight one area's response to another area's response just because of its size. Each one is a valid response. I think that's all I can say from a consultation perspective.
Yes, Councillor Rushton.
Thank you. As a resident of One House, I'm really concerned about this consultation and effective consultation, and echo the thoughts of my colleagues across the around digital discrimination and knowing how many elderly people, etc., and people who aren't on Facebook. I'm really concerned that there isn't any standards about the numbers that we're looking at back percentage-wise of the population, yay, nay, or otherwise. If there is no response, then it's, how can you tell you've had an effective consultation? I just feel that there ought to be something set that says, actually, if we're canvassing, 20,000 people, then as a bare minimum, 5% ought to, we ought to have some sort of measure in place. I'm just worried that you do all this work and you don't know whether it's actually been effective and people have actually understood it unless you're actually measuring some sort of response.
I think that's sort of needs a subjective answer. If there's already given an answer, which is that there's no limit on the number of responses, there's no sort of bottom line, as it were. This is a matter for going out to consultation, and this will be coming back to full council when we can look at the responses, the nature of the responses, and possibly how the consultation has been carried out. So we are looking at moving forward to the consultation. Councillor Hicks.
Just one thought. There's an organisation called the Consultation Institute, which gives good guidance on what is considered to be a good and proper and a thorough consultation, and their guidance is very clear. I think if that's followed, then you can have some confidence in the process.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. I think. Yeah. I think we are making. I've been advised that we will make thorough effort to consult with every resident, business, every stakeholder in all sorts of different media in order to make this process as accessible and transparent as possible. I guess. Where are we? We've completed questions. Proposer. We'll now move to debate. Councillors will only be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Councillor Scarf.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a few observations as District Councillor. Currently, Stowmarket is encircled by green fields and to the north the A14. With these draft recommendations, this would no longer be the case. I think the importance of a green buffer between the two communities is really important, and both parishes have sought to protect that green buffer between our communities for many years. That is a matter of fact. How does this proposal promote community cohesion, as residents of both parishes will have no gap at all between them if the draft recommendations are eventually accepted? I think one point I would like to make is that it was only when pressed by members of the District Council from Stowmarket that the table papers were amended to include Appendix C, which is an absolutely vital element to councillors making a fully informed decision. I am certainly of the opinion that these proposals in the draft recommendations do not reflect well on this council, and therefore I would not support them. Thank you.
Scarf. Councillor Patchett.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'd like to echo Councillor Scarf's points, and I also don't accept the recommendations that we've seen in front of us. One House and Stowmarket are two settlements that have been separated by around about 3/4 of a mile, and they've been separated by what's known as a strategic gap.
Discussing the actual, whether it should be going out to consultation or not.
Well, I'm obviously coming on to this because I don't agree with
it going out to
recommendations. No, I agree with it that it should go out to consultation, but there are recommendations in here that I don't agree with, and I feel like I should explain why I don't agree with those recommendations to my fellow councillors. Is that okay?
Yes, carry on.
So, if also there are some things in there that sort of don't really make sense. If you look at page 42 and 12.1, it says that there are no environmental impacts. Well, if you've removed this strategic green space from One House and Stowmarket, you've then opened that land up. It's fair game for development. So there are some nice flower meadows there at the moment. Well, if we have removed this line of delineation between these two settlements, then it can be built on, and that has an environmental impact. Also, if we look at page 41 and sections 7 and 8, financial and legal, we're saying the only financial implications are that it's some stamps and some paper. It literally says that. But if we do not get this through in the correct way, and there are disputes about these boundaries ongoing after we voted about it, we open ourselves up for a judicial review from the other parish councils. That is a financial implication, because that will cost tens, perhaps even hundreds of thousands of pounds to fight a legal case against the parishes. I'm not saying it will happen, it could happen, and that's not being considered in this. And I think the people that live in Union Road, when they bought these houses, they didn't think they were buying a house in One House, they thought they were buying a property in Stowmarket. This is quite clear from the developers who are Hopkins Homes, Mill Grove, and I'd like to read it to you, please. Mill Grove is being developed by Hopkins Homes in association with the Flavchik Group, offering stylish new homes in the delightful market town of Stowmarket. The people who built these houses and bought these houses thought that they were living in Stowmarket. If you go on Rightmove, other property apps are available, you will see, if you look at houses, all the houses on Union Road, they're all listed as Stowmarket. The people who live there, the people who built it, the people who sold it, all think they're in Stowmarket. You've got roads where one house is on one kind of council tax band, on the same road another is on a different one. How's that fair? This is clearly an extension of Stowmarket and not an extension of One House. Thank you.
I'd like to echo the comments that have been previously said. I was going to say very similar things to Councillor Patchett. To save time for all of us, I'll reserve my right to talk later about that, if that is indeed the case. Not tonight.
Councillor Linden.
I get the impression that the developer here might actually have preempted what we are supposed to do here, namely potentially change parish boundaries. So I don't think we should be forced or tied up by what a developer has put into the flashy brochures. And also about green buffer zones. I don't think it really matters to people whether the buffer zone is within One House or Stowmarket. If you buy a new house close to the boundary, the green areas will be there regardless of that. So therefore I don't think this really bears too much importance.
Chair, can I just come in? I'm just a bit concerned that we're getting into the debate on a recommendation that hasn't come before us at the moment. So if we can just concentrate on the recommendation to go out to consultation, and Councillor Patchett's point, the environmental impact is on the cost of the consultation. We are not discussing any decision tonight, so therefore I don't want you all to predetermine yourself by saying you're for it or against it, because we haven't had that consultation. So if we could just focus really on the recommendations, that would be great.
I have concerns about the recommendations for the consultation, because as has already been mentioned, there's accessibility is a big issue, and I don't think it would make clear all the nuances that come with kind of where you put the boundary for this development. Like, I understand the not going to the debate of all that, but as has been heard, there's a lot to it, which I think I don't think is represented in what we have in front of us, and I worry about how much, when it goes out to consultation, that would then be understood by people reading it and responding.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to commend the Community Governance Working Group, having read the report and the fact that you did spend all that time walking the boundary. And I think you've done, so far, you've done a very thorough job. And I understand that it's obviously quite an emotive issue for people on that side of Stowmarket, but we're not actually deciding where the boundary is going to be now. We're deciding whether we're going to consult. And I think we've had assurances from our officers that they will do their utmost to make sure that as many people who are likely to be affected are reached with this consultation. Consultation is a consultation. Some people will always respond. Other people, apathy rules. We can't dictate whether someone should respond or not. I'm sort of assuming that the parish councils and the town council are well aware of the fact that this is going out to consultation. And I very much expect them to do their own little bit of publicity for their own causes. And I think that somebody asked how we're going to look at all these consultations. Well, I think the Governance Review Working Group will have their work cut out. Because if we do get a lot of responses, which is what we're hoping, they'll all have very different views, and it'll be up to you to come up with a recommendation that will then be able to debate about whether the Hopkins Home development should be in Stowmarket or Wannes. We're not debating that now. We're debating whether it should go out to consultation. And I think that is what we should be doing. We all think it's important. We need to consult as widely as we can. We need to see what our electorate want. And then the Governance Review Working Group will look at all of those responses. They will come back with a recommendation, which we've now been assured is going to come back to this council, and that is when we'll have the debate about where we put that line on the map and which house is in Stowmarket and which house is in Wannes. So let's go and say yes to this consultation and let as many people as possible respond. Thank you. I thought we'd better move on, rather get a bit heated.
Thank you. I think you've got us back on track. Are there any further points anyone wishes to make? I think we have had a summing up. Councillor Pratt.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I really support that we put this out to consultation. As ward member for Battersford, I think that the proposed changes are fairly uncontroversial. At the moment, Bold Corner is in the parish of Coombs. It's like an enclave, but there isn't really a direct road going to Coombs from that. It goes through Little Fimbra before it reaches Coombs. So it'd be great to return this little enclave, to have this enclave really placed in Battersford. And I'm sure our residents, this was brought up in 2018, so our residents really, really want us to get going on this, and they want us to consult. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that. If there are no further contributions, I think I would just, so we are quite clear on what we're voting for, I'm just going to ask the Governance Officer to read out the proposal again, if I may. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I've come off the page in a second. So it's the last recommendation that we're changing. So on your voting, you'll see that it includes the amendment to recommendation 5, as discussed, and that the matter is brought back to full council for a full discussion, and that the monitoring officer be authorised to prepare the draft recommendations for consultation in accordance with the... No, I'm on the wrong amendment. Sorry.
That's what I mean, the last two aren't in there.
Yeah.
Aren't in there.
Okay, let me go back to the paper. Sorry, Chair.
I caught you both.
You did. Yeah, so the monitoring officer be authorised to complete the CGR and any required orders once all the consultation submissions have been considered by the Community Governance Working Group. But before that, the bit is that it will be brought back to full council for full decision by full council. And we'll tidy up that wording, but that is the gist. Thank you, Chair. That is now going to be showing in blue for councillors to cast their vote. Councillor Hardingham, are you okay? Or can I take your vote then? Oh. Chair, that is 28 votes for and 2 against.
Item 12, MC 2322, changes in Constitution. I'd like to invite the Interim Director, Law and Governance and Monitor Officer to introduce the paper MC 2322.
Thank you, Chair, and again, through you, Chair. So the Constitution Working Group looked at a number of amendments and changes to the Constitution. One of the changes they wanted to put into place was to have more equalitative and inclusive language contained within the Constitution. So the changes are an attempt to do that. It may not have captured every single one, but that's the attempt. And in fact, further on in the council standing orders, the new council standing orders, there is one part of it that doesn't have those changes. So I will endeavour to make sure that happens in the new contract standing orders. As the Constitution was gone through as well, it turned out that lots of the links weren't working, they were broken, some of the links were old, so all these things will now be sorted, and so the next time you go onto your Constitution, all the links will be working and you'll get to the appropriate page and they'll all be updated, etc. Just the main point, so the overview and scrutiny chair, the proposal is that it be changed so that the overview and scrutiny chair does not form part of the administration. The licensing and regulator committees and their subcommittees, there was an inconsistency in the Constitution. At one point it said, yes, you could substitute, and another part it said, no, you couldn't. So that inconsistency has been taken out. You cannot substitute onto licensing and regulatory committee and or the subcommittee. And the inclusion of political assistance as well, that's also been catered for as part of the, that takes into account a previous decision of this full council to include political assistance. There was deletion of the planning referral committee after your annual council in June, you deleted the referral committee, so this just makes sure that's happened in the paperwork. And also the development control committees A and B, and now no longer there is just one planning committee. That planning committee has 8 members with 4 permanent substitutes, and that's the difference. Chair, unless there are any questions, I'm looking for a proposer and a seconder, and then I'll take any questions in regards to any of the wording.
Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Eburn.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be very happy to propose this paper and these recommendations, and I appreciate particularly the more inclusive language that we'll be using throughout the Constitution, and I'd look to one of my colleagues to second these recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Masterson, would you like to second that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it gives me very great pleasure to be able to second this this set of changes to the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Masterson. Are there any questions? Councillor Caxton.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the boxes, page 72, it simply says paragraph 7.1 needs to be reworded. I don't know if this is a mistake. It seems like if we're amending the Constitution, we need actual words. We can't say it needs to be reworded. Page 66 of our papers. Chair, I can read that out if that's helpful to everyone. Page 66, it says page 72, paragraph 7.1 needs to be reworded. And that's the amendment that we've got for this. And as far as I know, I think we need actual words if we're amending something.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out, Councillor. This is just to bring in more inclusive language. So it's not to change the substance of the actual paragraph at all. So there it says his, her, that will be changed to they. That's all that was referring to.
It doesn't mention any of that. It simply says paragraph 7.1 needs to be reworded.
Exactly. That paragraph comes under the auspices of more inclusive language. There is no intention whatsoever to change the tenor of 7.1. It's just to change its inclusive language. That's all. And I'm quite happy. It should be amended to read at 7.1 to remove his, her, and replace with they.
Is that clear, Councillor Caxton?
Well, I think it needs to say that personally.
No, that's exactly.
Because reworded, it could be changed to anything if we're amending it to be reworded. We need to know what those words are, and everything else in here has got the exact words that will be changed.
Those are the exact words I'm proposing. That's what should go into that box against page 72. 7.1, his, her, to.
I think we can change.
Yes.
We can change that. We can change that, Councillor Caxton. Councillor Eburn.
Chair, as a proposer, I'd be happy for those exact words to go in there at that point, to say it's being reworded to ensure the language of his, her is changed to them.
So as an amendment, that's been accepted. Would you like
very happy with that. That's an answer to my question. Thank you.
Councillor Masterson, Councillor Masterson, do you have a question?
No, just to say a second, I would also accept those words.
Thank you very much. Councillor Masterson.
Can I just ask if this use of inclusive language is going to spread across the rest of all our documents? Because I happen to have just noticed that we have an inconsistency on mod.gov tonight. In our agenda, I think it's called the chairman's announcement, but the actual document is listed chair's announcement. So can we have this more inclusive language in all our documents, not just in the Constitution, so that we're giving the right message across everywhere? Thank you.
Chair, through you, just to confirm that that is in the process of being looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got any further questions? Unless there's a real desire for a debate, I think we could actually go for a vote. Is there a desire for a debate on this point? Changes the Constitution? Then I propose going to the vote and ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Chair, that is now been amended to reflect the amendments that Councillor Caston proposed, so it's ready to vote. Thank you. Chair, that is 26 votes for and 1 against and 3 abstentions.
Thank you. That is carried. I'm now moving on to item 13. I would like to invite Councillor Mellon to introduce paper MC 2323 and to move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is simply to put into place the timetable for the municipal year 24-25, which is attached at Appendix A. I don't think this is particularly controversial, so the recommendations are that the draft committee timetable for 24-25 attached as Appendix A be approved, and the Chief Executive calls the meetings in accordance with the agreed timetable unless there is insufficient business for the meeting to go ahead. So I'm happy to propose that.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second that.
Thank you. We'll now move to questions. Before we begin questions, I would just like to say that if there are any questions regarding dates of specific meetings, I would like them to be taken up, please, with the Corporate Manager for Governance and Civic Officer outside this meeting. Otherwise, we are going to be going through every meeting and discussing whether that's an appropriate date or not. Well, Councillor Hicks.
It's just a point of principle, really. We've just changed the November meeting next month when we set the dates a year ago, and a lot of us have put them in our diary, booked holidays, booked other meetings around those. So can I just ask that if we vote this through tonight, we do stick to it and not change it like we just did with the November meeting a couple of weeks ago? Because I know myself and Councillor Stringer will be away at a meeting that day, and we'd rather be here and be able to attend every meeting. So can we just keep to these dates and not move them, please?
I think I concur with that, actually, Councillor Hicks. Thank you. Councillor Mansell.
I completely echo Councillor Hicks for once. We agree. Maybe not for once. Maybe it's a sign of things to come. I've got 2 points I'd like to make. First one, I think, may have been brought up every year for the last 12 years that I've been a councillor, is a plea for a more electronic 21st century version of the calendar. I think someone has asked that every time I've sat in a council meeting discussing the calendar. So that's my first question. It would be wonderful if they could automatically be put into our electronic calendars so that we don't have to transfer them all manually and make mistakes. And I'd also just like to ask a question about recommendation 2.2, which talks about the Chief Executive will call a meeting. And every time a meeting is cancelled or moved or postponed, the message comes through as in consultation with the chair, and yet that isn't in 2.2. And I just wonder, should it be there, or is it up to the Chief Executive to decide whether we go ahead with the meeting or not? Thank you.
It should be done in consultation, but actually it is the Chief Executive as the proper officer who has the ability to summons and call councillors to a meeting.
And is there any progress towards the electronic 21st century version of a calendar?
We do keep trying, Councillor, but the issue that we have, it's a firewall issue, and it's the IT, the Suffolk County Council's IT blocks the download of what we're trying to do from modern.gov, but we have got a ticket in with modern.gov that if we ever get to a point where we go to a cloud-based system with them, which is actually coming up in the future, we may well be able to do that.
So we can look forward to our calendars being fixed and in the cloud. Excuse my frivolity there. Are there any further questions regarding this item? Sorry?
Show of hands, Councillor. You can just do it.
Shall we do it on show of hands?
If you want to.
We could, unless there is a real need for a debate. I think we could actually sort of decide this by a show of hands if people are happy to do so. If you already agree with the motion, could you please show us your hands?
Chair, that's unanimous.
That's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you. I'd now like item 14. I'd now like to invite Isti Ali to introduce paper MC 2324. I'm just waiting for Jan to leave the room. This is the appointment of an interim monitoring office.
Thank you, Chair, again, through you for the third time today. So the appointment of an interim monitoring officer, every council is required to have a monitoring officer. It's a statutory role, along with the head of paid service and the Section 151 officer. And you're not allowed to have any breaks in between. You have to have a monitoring officer at all occasions. As most of you know, I'll be leaving on the 31st of this month. So as from the 1st of October, the 1st of November, the view is that Janice Robinson, who is the corporate manager for law and governance, be appointed the interim monitoring officer. As I say, it's a statutory role. It has to be. You have to have one. A proposer and a seconder, please, and any questions. If there are any questions with regards to the role, then Kathy Nixon will respond.
Could I have a proposal? Councillor Mellon, right.
Yeah, I'm happy to propose this, Chair.
Councillor Lawrence? No? Councillor Eburn?
I'm happy to second. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions on this appointment? Councillor Pearson? Lawrence, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. Could I, you're not being rude, but could somebody explain what qualifications Jan has to fulfil this role, please?
Chair, through you, Jan Robinson has been the Deputy Monitoring Officer for quite some time, and so is used to both carrying out that role and on occasions the monitoring officer role when required.
Thank you.
I hope this is an allowed question. I mean, we're here voting about an interim monitoring officer, and we're all very sorry that Ifti Ali is departing next week. Can I just ask whether we've already made moves to find a permanent replacement, and what stage we're at with that? Thank you.
So I can confirm that the job advert has closed, and we are at the stage where technical interviews are taking place next week, and we expect to be at final interview in the middle of November.
Are there any further questions? I've just lost my place. Right, there we go. Could we now go to debate? Is there any matter for debate? Councillor Caxton.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Ifti for everything he's done. I was chairman when he came in, and he's fantastic at his job, and he's a really nice person to be in a meeting with and discussing things. And thank you very much for what you've done, and enjoy your retirement.
Wes, could we move to now the electronic vote?
Thank you, councillors. That vote is now in blue for you to vote on the app.
I would just like to ask, will there be somebody appointed as an interim to replace Janice's position as deputy as well?
The corporate manager for audit will take on the role of deputy monitoring officer whilst Jan steps up.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is 30 votes for, so that's unanimous.
That's unanimous. That's carried. Would someone like to bring Jan back in? Thank you. Congratulations. We now move to item 15, councillor appointments. I would like a proposer, please, to appoint a Sustainable Integrated Transport Working Group and the nominations for councillors as tabled, please. For clarification, the membership is as follows. Councillor Keith Scarf, Councillor Julie Morgan, Councillor David Penner, Councillor Sarah Mansell, Councillor Miles Rowe, Councillor James Padgett, Cabinet Member Teresa Davis, and could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the area of sustainable transport is very large, and as you will know, includes trains, buses, cycling, walking. The work is involved, both vast and detailed. We have only one officer for both Mid-Suffolk and Baber, and we, the Green Party, feel this issue needs much more focus and investment to meet our residents' needs. Councillors have offered their time and skills to assist our sustainable transport officer, and therefore I would like to propose we establish a Sustainable Integrated Transport Working Group.
Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, happy to second this, Chair, and this is an important area of work, but we'd like to move forward on a cross-party basis, and I think the names here will be able to complement the work of our officers and support the Cabinet member in this area of work.
Okay. I think I can move. I'm going to move straight to the vote now. The vote is to agree the appointments as detailed. I'll now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. It is showing in blue for you to cast your vote. Councillor Carter, would you like to place your vote manually? Or should have gone through. Thank you. That is unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. That is carried. Do we have any motions on notice?
No, Chair.
I'd like to thank everybody for quite a complicated evening. The next meeting is on Monday, the 20th of November at 5:30 p.m. in the Council Chamber.